Hey everybody, what's going on? We're just testing this out right now, making sure that you guys can hear us, you guys can see us. I don't see it on our page. From fantasyalarm.com with me here, as you can see, Craig Mish, the newest member of fantasyalarm.com. That's right, baby. We got Mish joining us here. You guys know him from SiriusXM Fantasy Sports Radio. You know him from, well, geez, Mish, where else are you from now, huh?
A lot of different places. I would say probably not just SiriusXM, but local radio.
Can't I hear anything?
You hear me there good?
No, I can't. I'm on a weird delay. I guess I gotta mute everything on my home screen here. Okay, so mute and mute that. All right, Mish, talk to me, baby. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I hear you good, Howard. How are you doing?
Oh, see, there we go. Look at that. All right, so here's what's going to happen, guys. Just so you know, you're in the awareness here. Every Tuesday and every Friday at noon Eastern, Craig Mish and I, we're going to be sitting down here. We're going to be talking all things MLB. We're just kind of testing it out right now. We're going to have a little bit of a conversation. Maybe ask, if you guys have some questions you want to throw our way. I'm looking right now on our Facebook page for comments. I'm looking at the Fantasy Alarm YouTube page. I'm looking at the Fantasy Alarm Periscope, whatever the case may be. So, guys, if you got a question you want to throw down, by all means, check it out. Mish, been quite the off season. A lot of late signings here. A lot of things going on. You broke all the Marlins stuff. Let's talk about that for a quick second here, because let's face it, man. The Marlins have been put into like a shit dumpster at this point in time right now. No Zuna, no Stanton, no Yelich. There's just nothing there. Talk to me here. Is there any kind of saving grace for fantasy owners on this Marlins team?
Well, I think offensively there are probably a few guys. You can't ignore Starlin Castro. He's been an all-star 4 times, and at second base, I mean, even though there are probably more options, it is pretty thin. He's going to play every day. He's going to bat most likely third in that Marlins lineup. So you would think there would be some offensive opportunities there. And then Justin Bour last year was in the home run derby, got hurt late in the year. If he's healthy, he's probably a 30 home run bat. But let's be honest, this is going to be a work in progress. I think offensively, Howard, as the season goes on, kind of like the Tigers a little bit, you'll find some diamonds in the rough. I think it's going to happen. From an offensive point of view, Lewis Brinson maybe could be another one of those guys, but make no mistake about it, Howard, the pitching on this team is not going to be good. I mean, it is going to be difficult. In fact, the Marlins just announced that Caleb Smith is going to open up the season as their number 2 starter. Number 2. This is a guy with 2 career starts who the Marlins got in the offseason from the Yankees. And, he's never gone 8 innings in a major league game, 7 innings, I don't think, in a major league game. They got the Cubs the first 4 games and then the Red Sox for the next 2. So maybe from a daily fantasy perspective, it's interesting maybe to maybe pivot that way against it. But, strange things happen in April, Howard. Who knows? The Marlins could start 5-1. They could start 0-6. But from a fantasy perspective and reality, I think the offense of the Marlins will be okay. The starting pitching won't.
Yeah, I can get down with that. I definitely can. I remember it was like 2006. And I was doing a blind bid auction, and I was like, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to throw a buck on each middle infielder for the Marlins at that point. Little guy named Hanley Ramirez, and an even littler guy, Rule 5 pick, was Dan Ugla. So you never know where you can get this, the kind of help that you might need. Mish, we've actually got some questions here. You ready to start answering?
Let's fire away. I can't wait.
All right. I got our friend at Pete Smick. We know him all over Twitter. Is Charlie Morton at risk if the Astros go to a 4-man rotation?
I haven't heard anything about that. I think that what they're talking about is going to a 4-man outfield, the Astros talked about. But I don't think that they're headed to a 4-man rotation. You know who's starting the first game. It's going to be Verlander. You know for sure that Dallas Keuchel is the second starter in that team, and they have Garrett Cole. They have Charlie Morton, who's starting the home opener, by the way. They pushed him back to start in Houston in front of those fans. And then Lance McCullers is the 5. So the only thing that could happen to Morton is, A, he doesn't pitch well, or B, he gets hurt. I don't think either of those two things would happen. I have a little bit of nervousness, maybe 5% nervousness, just because his last 2 spring starts, he was really beat up. But from what I understand, the Astros at the beginning and the end of the spring were on this anti-curveball thing. It was all fastballs at the beginning, all fastballs at the end. They didn't want to have any deception and team scouting them looking at other teams. So I would think that Charlie Morton is solid for 150, 160 innings, 160, 170 strikeouts, and at least 12, 13 wins. Every pitcher in that rotation in Houston is good for 12, 13 wins this year, in my opinion.
Right on. I can dig that. Absolutely. I've been all over Keuchel. I've been all over Morton late.
Gotta be. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Here you go. At J Cuevas 23331 wants to know, is Ryan McMahon making the opening day roster in Colorado? Is he worth an ad? If so, would you drop Yonder Alonso or Josh Hader?
Yeah, on the morning, you have the afternoon Jim Bowden, and I have the morning Jim Bowden.
My Jim Bowden's a lot more animated and awake than your Jim Bowden.
No, my Jim Bowden's better. You're wrong. It's my Jim Bowden in the morning. It's better than
my Jim Bowden is sponsored by Red Bull.
We'll have a lot of fun with that. You know what's crazy, Howard, is that in all the years that you've been playing fantasy, and you go back a long way and so do I, we always had Sunday Night Baseball as the opener. Until last year, they added a couple more games to make it more interesting. And so what Major League teams did is they set their final 25-man roster on Sunday. And so by the time we started playing fantasy for real on that Monday, we knew all the guys who were going to start. We knew the entire 25-man roster. Teams don't have to set their final 25-man until 11:30 a.m. Eastern Thursday. So we're going to have no clue who's going to be on the roster. You're asking me, is Ryan McMahon going to be there? I don't know. I don't know the answer to it. Now, look, David Dahl got sent to the minors, so that gives you a little bit of optimism and a little bit of hope. But even if McMahon does make the roster initially, I don't see a ton of playing time coming from him at the beginning of the season. Colorado's going to be very competitive. So I can't answer that question because I don't know the answer. McMahon is a late-round type sleeper stash at this point for me. What about you?
He's a late-round sleeper stash for me as well. I don't really understand what the Rockies are actually doing here. McMahon was their best hitter during the spring. Desmond, who they said we were going to lock into left field, hit like crap, and I don't think he was really that impressive out in left field. So they turned around. They were like, well, we're going to move him over to first base because we've got Gerardo Parra. Now, you and I guess, was it 2 years ago?
2 years ago. Mm-hmm.
2 years ago, you and I were all over Gerardo Parra. He got hurt. It was a very disappointing thing. Last year, he actually put together some really nice, runs when he was healthy and playing. So I don't begrudge the Parra thing here. Dahl down there in the minors, but yeah, that Cargo signing really screwed McMahon. It really screwed McMahon.
Yeah, you have Blackman, you have Cargo in the outfield, and you have Parra. You also have Tapia, who I believe is going to make the roster as their at least fourth outfielder, if not fifth. Desmond's got to play first base. If Desmond plays the outfield, then McMahon could get some time at first base. Look, normally it's funny when you look at the Rockies in terms of fantasy, you want to stack as many offensive players as you want. I can make a case a lot of those guys outside of Arenado get a little bit of a downgrade this year because of the Cargo signing and because Blackman's going to bat third in the lineup. I think he takes a little bit of hit in terms of stolen bases too. The only problem is in these very, very deep leagues in fantasy, you almost have to take your chance on these guys and hope they hit. You can't wait for Ryan McMahon to come around. You got to get him now before he comes up. But for me, in terms of any 12-team league or a 10-team league or even a 15-team league, I want him at the end. He's a stash for me, and if he comes up and somehow gets playing time every day, then he definitely could be a monster. I can't navigate those waters yet.
Yeah, very tough to do. Very tough to do. All right, another question here. This is Chris Bouvier, who writes over at Fantasy Alarm. He's
hey, Chris.
He's a little anxious here. He's freaking out about closers. The Angels closer situation. We thought it was Bedrosian. You've got Blake Parker there. It's not a good situation here. I used to think that Mike Scioscia would prefer to have one guy as opposed to playing all the matchups, but he just doesn't have that arm there. Jim and I were speculating maybe Greg Holland lands in Los Angeles, but it doesn't look like that's happening anytime soon. Bedrosian, Parker, wild card?
Yeah, Keenan Middleton is the wild card there. The broadcaster for the Angels, Jose Mota, came on one of my shows and said that he is the best arm in that bullpen and he should be the closer right now. So for me, that's the guy that I want to own in 15-team leagues. In 10 and 12s, I mean, Howard, you just got to know better about saves and know that you just don't want to target that position on that team because it's going to be fluid all season. And Bedrosian may be the best arm there. He hasn't been healthy. For me, Parker is an older type guy. He's not a young prospect. I don't like the situation at all there. And so, like St. Louis, the Angels situation in the back nine is not something that I'm going to target. There's probably a handful of teams that I just won't mess with the closer situation unless it's like, now look, you're talking about the last pick of the draft? Yeah, absolutely. I want Bedrosian. I want all those guys. But I don't want any part of the Angels, and I don't want any part of the Cardinals, and I don't want any part of the Tigers, too. I think the Tigers are only going to win like 60 games. Shane Green closer? Like, I'm not buying that. I'm just staying away from all that unless it's at the end.
Yeah, I'm not buying it either. And, sitting there at the end, I'm looking more for guys like Steckenrider or even Jose Ramirez, AJ Minter, that whole
Give me, absolutely. Give me the eighth inning guys any day with the skills and hope for the best. But Middleton is definitely a name. I know he hasn't had a fantastic spring, but that is a name that was brought up that honestly didn't really know existed. So it's just somebody in an American League or a 15-teamer that when you see him on the waiver wire, you may want to just stash and wait.
Nice. Love it. All right, at Gotham City, DG23 wants to know your thoughts on Rougned Odor. Horrible batting average last year, but come on, 30 home run power at second base. Yum.
Yeah, 30 home runs there from him. Plays in a lineup that three guys are kind of the same to some degree with Mazzara and Gallo and Odor. A lot of home runs and a lot of strikeouts. I think Odor is still probably going to hit 30 home runs. I think runs may be a little bit more of an issue. This is a big swing and miss team. And I'm just, even though DeShields is going to lead off, I'm just not sure exactly what that lineup is going to look like. And I've been pretty public on my opinion on the Texas Rangers, Howard. I think this is probably the one team that was overestimated in terms of what they were going to do. Now, going into the offseason, you looked at Texas, you thought, okay, look, they're in the division. They probably won't beat the Astros, but, they could compete with Seattle, and they could compete with the Angels. Well, let me ask you this, Howard. Seattle, they go out, they get D. Gordon, they get Healy, they make all these nice moves. The Angels, they go get Cozart, they go get Ohtani, they go get Ian Kinsler. What did Texas do? They got Tim Lincecum. They didn't do anything. I think the Rangers are not going to be in a position to compete. And I feel like when we get to July, Cole Hamels, Adrian Beltre, those guys are going to be somewhere else. And you can't really look at lineups and project players, what they're going to do based on the players that are around them. But I'm just kind of out on the Rangers this year because I feel like they're doing the smart thing. They look up, they see no chance of competing with Houston, very little chance of competing with the Angels. And I think Seattle's better than them, too. They could finish ahead of Oakland. But if I'm Texas, I'm all the way out. I'm all the way down. And that being said, I think the opportunities for me drafting those offensive players on Texas is going to be limited for me this year.
Any thoughts on Joey Gallo hitting out of the two-hole there? Could that help him with his on-base work? Or, are we looking at, I kind of feel like it might help with his on-base work if DeShields has the green light and gets on base ahead of him. Then what? They're just going to keep walking Gallo? Is that what we might be looking at this year?
Maybe so. Gallo's going to hit 40 home runs. I feel confident in saying that. In fact, that if you have a dark horse for winning the American League home run title, I would go with him. He's got as much or more power than anybody in the game, maybe outside of Stanton and JD Martinez. So, look, if you're playing in an on-base league, yeah, he's going to have a 34% on base, I would say. But the guys that are behind him, Howard, are just so swing and miss in Odor and Mazzara. And you throw a lefty up against them, it creates even more problems for them. So, I hate to go with a general observation just based on a team and how I feel about them and punt all their players. I'm not doing that. I like Mazzara, and there's a spot for me with Mazzara as well as DeShields and Beltre and everyone else on their team. But Gallo for me is like when you're doing a draft and you decide that you're going to attack pitching. Okay, so if you attack pitching in a 12-team league, 2 out of the first 3 or 4 picks, yeah, later on, you're like, how do I get my power? Well, I got 40 home run power in Gallo. I got 40 home run power in Davidson. I got 40 home run power in Chris Davis. I can attack those guys and accomplish the same thing. You're just not going to get the steals, and you're not going to get batting average in that kind of league.
Okay, cool. All right, so at Pete Smick, he's double dipping on some questions here.
I only do one for free. That's
I think he's subscribed, so I think we're good with Pete.
You're in. Give me another.
He's a good dude. Also, if you want like tons of bad jokes on Twitter, get a follow over there because he's loaded with the MLB puns. But he wants to know Pollock versus Buxton this year. Wants to know if we've got concern over the ground injuries for Pollock. Is Buxton a little on the overhyped side here? Give me your thoughts on the two of them. I'm higher on Buxton than I am on Pollock, but then again, I was all over Greg Bird this year, so what the hell do I know?
Yeah, the Bird injury. That's that was a tough one. It was funny. You did the draft last week, and we swapped Acuna and Bird for the picks. I mean, I'm in the Great Fantasy Invitational. You're in that. I mean, you're in every league. You got to be in that one. I mean, you're in every league known to man. I have Bird in that one. I have Bird in that league. I took him in the 9th or something like that. So I'm feeling the same kind of pain. AJ Pollock, this is really the year that let's skip Buxton for a minute. This is the year with AJ Pollock where we're going to find out, is he the guy from 2 years ago, or is this just simply a player in the same sentence as Bird where he may be unlucky, but the injuries just find him. They're just those players that are unlucky, but they keep getting hurt. And Pollock has been that guy over the last couple of years, and have the injuries caught up to him to the point where he can't be that player. I'm not really buying into the whole humor thing. I'm not really as worried about that as some other people are. But for me, I just see so much more upside with Buxton. And remember, worst case scenario for me with Buxton is that he was the best base stealer in the game last year. He was only caught once, I think, in 30 tries or 31 tries. Even if Buxton bats 240 and hits 18, 20 home runs, he's definitely stealing more bases than Pollock. That is happening. So if you base your analysis on that and you're looking for steals, because let's be honest, that's kind of what we're looking for both guys, Buxton is the play for me. What do you think, Howard?
I'm all over Buxton as well. I agree with you completely that I do think he will steal more bases than A.J. Pollock. And I think that, there's going to be a lot of just gun shy in Arizona of giving him the green light and really running that risk of him getting hurt yet again. So, yeah, I do like Buxton. I do think that he is capable of taking that next step. He's had those 2 half seasons now where he struggled in the first half, dynamic in the second half. So I think that can actually improve to the full season here. I really like what these Twins have been doing as far as adjusting their team. So I'm hoping that, Buxton now he's feeling a little bit more comfortable and he's going to be able to get moving forward on that. Just one comparison here that Bowden made yesterday that really just, you want to talk about like through the heart here. Basically referred to Greg Bird as the new Nick Johnson.
Yeah, Nick Johnson had those same kind of injuries. And it's funny is that there was one point last week before this happened with Bird that I saw him in person in Jupiter at a spring training game. And I said, this just doesn't look like the guy in spring training last year. And he was hurt even in spring training last year too, but there was just something off for me. And on the show last week, I had said to Jim, I think I'm at the point where I got to be out. And this is before I got lucky. I said, I think I'm still going to take him, but there's just something up. He's batting $170. He just doesn't look right. Maybe something's up here. But I never would have guessed that he would have this kind of injury where he's going to be out another 6 weeks. But look, the good news is that, he plays a position where he doesn't have to move around a lot. But the bad news is it is a foot injury. And honestly, Howard, in that playoff game last year against the Astros that everyone talks about, that great play, remember that Bregman, he fielded the ball, he threw it home. Greg Bird is coming home. Everyone thought he had no shot, tag him out. If anybody else is running home, the Yankees are playing in the World Series, but Bird is just not a fast player. Not to rub that in, but that's true.
He's got a bum foot, dude. Come on. Don't give me that crap. He's got a loose bone spur, loose bodies floating through his ankle right now. It's like, seriously, man, it's like an asteroid field swirling around his ankle. They're going to clean it out. He's going to be great. I'm telling you, he's going to be great someday.
I hope so.
All right, so no other questions going on right now here. So let me ask you, Craig. Let's talk for a second here. I know you like your DFS. I like my DFS. I'm going to be rocking the playbook. With the DFS team this year on fantasyalarm.com. Very successful season in the NFL. Cash lineups for cash, and I think it was like 13 out of 16 weeks that we were rocking it at one point. So I'm really looking forward to this. Talk to me about early season DFS, because obviously we can look at last year's numbers. We can look at lefty-righty splits. We can look at things that pitchers have maybe worked on, some of the younger players and adjustments being made against them. How do you approach DFS MLB this early in the season when we just don't have the data that we usually like to have?
Right, but here's what we do know, and here's kind of where the advantages come in terms of starting pitchers, is that we've never seen a season where everybody is playing Thursday at the same time, and all these teams are having their ones versus ones, and they're all going against each other. Normally, opening day, they stagger it. One team plays Sunday night, a bunch play Monday, a bunch play Tuesday. So I think that what you have to do is really kind of like how we do in season-long leagues, is we find those aces, the Klubers, the Kershaws, the Scherzers, and really target those teams who have that ace against one of the poorer teams in baseball. And I think that in my opinion, finding some of those lesser options, like the Marlins, like the Tigers, like the White Sox, if you can get some of those aces, number one or number two pitchers going against some of those poor guys, that's kind of the way that I would go. Another thing is kind of finding those players that can get off to hot starts. One name that I've talked about a lot on my show, who I think is going to be somebody that I'll roster in DFS lineups and hope for the best because he gets as hot as anybody and is cold, is Colby Rasmus on the Baltimore Orioles. I'm telling you now, if Colby Rasmus plays and he faces it off against right-handed pitching, he's going to be cheap, and you have a chance for him to hit home runs like 5 days in a row. And then you got to get off. But those are the kind of examples that you find those really streaky guys early on in the season you can cash early.
All right. Well, you know what? Let's talk about some of these matchups then, and let's kind of just go through it. John Lester has to be on your radar then if he's pitching first game of the day in Miami. We just talked about the Marlins. So is Lester a guy who, you look at and you say, I could cash game this dude?
Maybe a little bit. I really like the second game, though, as I mentioned. Game 2 of the Marlins against the Chicago Cubs. I believe that's the game that I just talked about, the pitcher Caleb Smith pitching for Miami. And then game 3, Howard, the Marlins' third starter against either is it Darvish going game 2 for the Cubs or Quintana, one of those two. But either way, Quintana and Darvish, games 2 and games 3 against Caleb Smith and Odrisamer Despaigne. Those are the matchups, man. Like, those are juicy, early, good season matchups to target. The first game of the season, listen, anything can happen. It's opening day. That's in the home ballpark. Marlins have all young kids. You never know. That's not one that I want to target. But yeah, games 2 and 3. I mean, those are going to be juicy ones to target those Cubs pitchers. That's for sure.
All right. Well, let's play a little Would You Rather then, Craig. Would you rather use Max Scherzer on opening day in Cincinnati, knowing that he does have those home run issues? Yeah. But he's going up against Homer Bailey. Would you rather use him, or would you rather go Kershaw at home against the Giants, which is obviously always a heated rivalry?
Yeah, I mean, Kershaw against Ty Block. I mean, do I need to say anything more? I mean, I put the poor Giants, man, having all those injuries. And, it's kind of strange that Cueto, I guess they just kept him in line in their starting 5, and they have him starting the second game. So I would actually go back to the Giants for game 2. I think that's probably not a bad DFS pitching option for Cueto in game 2. But, yeah, for game 1, Kershaw on the mound at home where he's so good, and Ty Block, I mean, I just can't see it happening for him. Scherzer, the problem with Scherzer is that at any point in the game, as you mentioned with the home runs, if he puts a guy or two on and someone's swinging uppercut, he gives up a 3-run spot. That just happened in the last spring game that I went to. He gave up a home run to this kid on the Marlins who hasn't played a big league game, but he had a 3-run home run. Scherzer gave 4 runs. He lost the game. So I love Scherzer, season-long leagues. He's the guy for me over all of them in terms of pitching. But either or, Kershaw for me in that one.
All right, listen, I love it. Yeah, Kershaw, the home start there, the back doesn't have time to flare up on him, at least for that first one there.
Not yet.
I'm kind of scrolling through. I'm looking at the schedule right now here in front of me. There are definitely some tasty things. A lot of people looking at my Yankees. This lineup is insane. But, it's kind of funny here. Opening day for the Yankees. It's in Toronto. You got to love you got to love the fact that it's, the Rogers Center, which is, Coors Field of the American League at this point in time right now. But J-Happ, Listen, I don't dig J Happ. I don't own J. I think I owned him in one league last year, and I think I had him on my bench for every good start, and I started him for every crappy start. What are you going to do? It's J Happ pitches so well against the Yankees
for some reason. I don't know why.
Mind-numbing here. Is that the is that the fade of the big killer fade here in the opening day? Do you sit Yankees? Do you sit Stanton in his debut? Judge? I mean, what do you do with this?
Yeah, it's April and September, Howard, are always just strange. Like, you can't look at those 2 months and really point to any identifiers. But I think that you just hit on a huge point here. You've only mentioned 2 teams, and the names you mentioned on opening day are Homer Bailey and J Happ. Like, think about that. I mean, that's 2 of 30 teams already. I mean, we have and Ty Block. We haven't even scratched the surface here. I think there are better opportunities out there to pick against, and all year long we'll have an easy time doing them. It really speaks to just the lack of pitching in the big leagues. When we talk about our season-long drafts and everyone says, oh, you can wait on pitching, and some people ask, should I move up to get pitching early? Like, doesn't that tell you the story, Howard? Like, just take a look at opening day and who's starting for these teams. You would think Castillo would start opening day for Cincinnati, but look, I mean, listen, give me my Nationals against the Reds in that lineup, by the way, opening day against Homer Bailey. That's going to – and by the way, the Reds' bullpen was, I think, the worst in the big leagues last year. I would definitely be all in on that. I'm all in on Washington. Adam Eaton. Give me Adam Eaton in Game 1.
It's definitely going to be interesting here. All right, got a question here at Gotham City DG23. Double dipping again. He lost to Nelson Lamet for about a month now here. Wants to know if he should replace him with Jack Flaherty. Now, Flaherty has been a guy that Jim and I have been talking about a lot on that tail end of that rotation for the Cardinals here. I kind of see it, and Jim sort of saw it the same way. You've got Mikolas, you've got Flaherty at the back end. One of them is going to get bumped down once Adam Wainwright's ready to come back into play here. Do you like Flaherty at all as a possible, just an early season option, somebody you can kind of plug in there for a couple of weeks, maybe get a few decent starts out of him?
Yeah, not really. I'm more bearish on rookie pitchers. I just have been burned so many times through the years. If we were sitting here opening day last year and we were talking about the same conversation, the player you'd be asking me about was Julio Urias. Oh, he's going to be a star. He's going to be, and he got hurt and he wasn't very good. Rookie pitchers just take time to develop. I've seen Flaherty pitch a lot, and I saw him pitch in the spring. And Flaherty was pitching for his life in the spring, like trying to make that opening day roster, unlike a lot of these guys who were just trying to get work in. I go back to last September. Flaherty in some games didn't look ready. I'm a little scared, and I don't want to see your team get blown up at the beginning. And they could easily, if Flaherty has one bad start, send him down to the minor leagues. In terms of Mikolas, here, Mike, I talked to somebody very close to him the other day because I was doing my own fantasy scouting, and here's what he told me: at the end of the season, Mikolas is going to get as close to 200 innings as anybody on the St. Louis Cardinals. He's a horse; he doesn't get hurt, but what he's there to do is eat those innings. 10 wins, an ERA of 4.5, and 130, 140 strikeouts. They signed Mikolas to make sure that they have a viable guy in that rotation to eat the innings, and that's what he is going to be. So for me, I think there are other interesting options out there. To me at this point, Stratton on San Francisco is a name that should be attacked at this point because he's going to be in that rotation for the foreseeable future. And I kind of like his makeup. I like some of the pitches that he throws too. Flaherty has the higher pedigree. There's no doubt about it. Flaherty against the Cubs, Flaherty against the Brewers. Yeah, give me the NL West guys. I'll take my chances there.
I love it. I love it. Any kind of thoughts coming into, we're heading into the season here. I guess Greg Holland still hasn't signed. He's probably the biggest name that we're looking at now. We've got, I'd say, at least 5 or 6 teams. When you look at the Cardinals, the Angels, you look at the White Sox even. There are a lot of situations who could use a closer who don't have somebody all set in there. Any thoughts on a potential of where Holland could end up? Because dude had 41 saves last year. I just don't understand why he's not landing anywhere.
Yeah, and the best closer in baseball until the All-Star break, and then slowed down a little bit. I think that Holland it appears as though the way that he's going to play this out is the smart way. He's probably looking at two things. Number one, you're not going to get the money that you thought you were going to get. That's clear. So why not play for a good team? And I think that he's probably going to hold out and say to himself, like we say in fantasy, by the time we get to the end of April, as long as Holland is in shape, minimum 5 guys, Howard, are losing their jobs at closing. Minimum 5, okay? We've seen years that 12 guys have lost their jobs in April in terms of closer. There's going to be an opportunity for him somewhere. And, for Sean Doolittle, let's say he has a great year and he's the MVP and he's the best closer. Cool. You know what else Sean Doolittle could do? He could get hurt in game 2. And Washington could call him and he could end up being the closer there. I mean, who's to say? I don't want to see Craig Kimbrell or Kenley Jansen get hurt. But what if they do? What if something happens there, Howard? Greg Holland comes right in. He's the closer on the Dodgers. He's the closer on the Red Sox. I think that's what Holland's waiting for. I think all these predictions at this point are a little bit silly. If the Cardinals really wanted Greg Holland, they would have signed him by now. If the Angels really wanted him, he would have signed him by now. Another team is going to jump in the mix. Some other team will have an injured player, and that's probably where he'll end up, in my opinion.
Yeah, no, listen, I'm with you. For years, and you and I used to do that show on Sunday nights together, and I was a huge supporter of closers, talking about how they do more than just give you saves, how they balance out the ratios, how they augment strikeouts. These last 2 seasons, I mean, it's been a hot mess. It's been absolutely disgusting. And where I'm looking at closers right now in drafts, and let me ask you this, are you drafting closers at all? Like, have you made the move to like a Jansen or a Kimbrell early? Are you kind of floating towards the tail end? I seem to be settling in right now on like Blake Trinan.
Yeah, that's one of the guys I've gotten.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he's down there in the middle kind of area.
Mm-hmm.
Who?
Yeah, Brandon Morrow is another one.
Okay,
in that same area. Yeah.
Wade Davis. Any interest in him in Colorado?
Yeah, they have so many good options behind him that I'm a little concerned. I don't like Melanson, let's be honest, but they did give him so much money that, and by the way, he hasn't given up a run, I don't think, in the spring. He's not a top 20 closer, but at the end, okay, I'll take my shot there. I'm just not in, and by the way, Felipe Rivero may be great, and Iglesias may be great, and Corey Knebel may be great, but they're just not on any of my teams, man. I'm not doing it. And the other part of this is that we go through this every year. And then there are going to be naturally some people who have that counterattack to my attack, and they always say the same thing. Well, last year I just was chasing saves all year, and I went with that theory that I didn't want a closer, and it didn't work. So this year I grabbed one of the elite guys. And if you would have said that last year, you would have had Zach Britton on your team. So, and 2 years ago, it would have been Greg Holland. You cannot invest early in a draft in these guys. It doesn't work. And between Craig Kimbrell, Kenley Jansen, and Aroldis Chapman, Howard, I'm telling you, one of those guys is going to go down. It's going to happen. It happens every year. One of the top guys, you just don't know who to identify. But would it shock you that in Game 6, Craig Kimbrell's already blown 2 saves? Something's wrong. He's not throwing as hard, and then that's it? It wouldn't surprise me at all.
No, it definitely wouldn't surprise me, not one bit. Give me your thoughts on how about that Arizona bullpen situation. Jim and I seem to think, and I'm sure you've talked about it with him extensively, Archie Bradley, much better in that effector role. You talked to Lenny Melnick and Andrea Lamont a ton. We know the effector terminology. For those of you out there who don't know the effector terminology, it's that 2-inning guy, or inning and a third, or inning and 2/3, the guy you want against the best part of the opposition's lineup. We're talking about Andrew Miller. We're talking about Chris Davinsky. We're talking about Archie Bradley, too. And I kind of feel like that's the way. But Yoshihisa Hirano hasn't really had the greatest of springs. Oh, yeah, I've been practicing that one.
You're the man.
He's on like every one of my teams, so I've got to make sure that I can actually pronounce his name properly here.
Yeah.
But you do also have Brad Boxberger in the mix, so any thoughts on how that Arizona situation could spill out?
I do, and that's one great, I think, closing idea to attack because of a couple of different things. Well, let's go back 24 hours. 24 hours ago, the Diamondbacks played in one of their final spring training games, Howard, and Zach Greinke pitched 6 innings with a lead, and Archie Bradley came in the 7th, and Boxberger came in the 8th, and Hirano came in the 9th. Now, I don't know if that's the way it's going to play out, but we are 48 hours away from the season. I'm feeling pretty good that may end up being the way the Diamondbacks are going to attack it. Now, in my tout wars, I spent money on Archie Bradley. But the reason why I did was because I said to myself, you know something? I've seen this play out in the past before. The last team that went overseas and grabbed a player ended up saving 40 games and being the best closer in baseball, and that was Sung Hwan Oh for the St. Louis Cardinals. I don't think Arizona went out and spent this money on Hirano to be the 6th inning guy or 7th inning guy, and he did struggle in the spring. I get it. I think Hirano may end up being the guy. I think Bradley's the swing guy, and I'm just not invested on Brad Boxberger. Yeah, 2 years ago, he saved a lot of games. Look at the advanced metrics. He didn't pitch well. Tampa Bay was in a lot of close games. He got 40 saves. I like that combo of adding Bradley with Hirano together. What do? You get 120 innings. You get 140 strikeouts. Hopefully, between the two of them, you get 35, 40 saves and a whip of 1.02, 1.05, something like that. Maybe 8 wins. You accomplish what you can, and I think you protect yourself there. But to get all 3 guys, Howard, that's a bit much. I'm just not taking Boxberger anywhere. Maybe I'll get burned, but that's the way I attacked it.
Okay, so what do you think about Jim's idea about handcuffing back-end guys, particularly in leagues where you've got saves and holds? Like he was talking about Josh Hader and Corey Knebel, Archie Bradley and Yoshihisa Hirano, Chris Davinsky and Ken Giles, or you could go Will Harris and Ken Giles. But either way, if you're doing saves and holds, to handcuff those 2 guys, or is that overkill? Would you prefer maybe if you were to take a guy like Corey Knebel, instead of taking a guy like Josh Hader, you took a guy like Drew Steckenrider, who, for all intents and purposes, could end up closing for the Marlins inside of a month, depending on what happens with Brad Ziegler?
Yeah, I think Ziegler will pitch and close through June or July, but I think Steckenrider will be the next guy. I agree with that. I'm not really huge on cuffing the closers. I think it's investing a lot, especially with early picks. The only combo that I gave the example of doing that, which I'm all in favor of, is with Cody Allen and Andrew Miller. I think that is the one of all of them, and not even with the Yankees, because I'm not so sure on Betances anymore. And the reason why I said that, Howard, is because not just because of the saves that you get with Cody Allen, but if you put Allen and Miller's numbers together, you get a bona fide starter and closer together. You really do. I mean, you go ahead and take your pitcher on the White Sox or your pitcher on the Tigers. What are they going to win? 7 games, 8 games? Between Allen and Miller, and you are investing 2 picks in the first 15 rounds, but let's just say you do, you're getting 10 to 12 wins. You're getting over 200 strikeouts between Miller and Allen, that's for sure. You're also going to get your 40 saves, and you are at no risk whatsoever from not getting the closer there. It's going to be one of those 2 guys. That's it for me. It's the highest of the elite 8th inning guy, which I think Andrew Miller is. Honestly, I don't think anybody else comes close to Miller. Chad Green could be that guy, but the Yankees have all those other arms in the back end of the 9th inning. They could go to Robertson. They could go to somebody else. So to me, the only protection is protecting against in Cleveland. Because, Howard, I think Ken Giles is going to lose the job eventually anyway, and so I think you could be just wasting your pick, and Davinsky's the closer. And Giles, by the way, would pitch in games that don't mean anything if it gets to that point. I'm just not in on him. Cleveland is the only backup direction that I would go.
Love it. Love it. All right, I got one more question for you here. Chris Bouvier wearing his Tampa Rays hat here.
Awesome team.
He's a fan, and you can go to the Fantasy Alarm writers page. You can actually see that ugly mug of his wearing that ugly-ass Tampa Rays hat. In any event, Chris Bouvier wants to know that whether or not you think that Blake Snell has turned a corner. I was talking to Jim this morning as we were updating our front office insights for the draft guide. He made mention of the improvements that Snell has made. I've seen a different Blake Snell from what I've seen in the past, but can you trust him?
I can trust Blake Snell, and if I was playing in a daily league, he's extremely valuable because I can hand-pick the matchups, assuming he stays healthy. Let's say, for example, Snell makes 28 starts this year and stays healthy, which is certainly possible. He could end up striking out close to 200 guys. I think so. But Howard, Toronto, Baltimore, Boston, New York, at home, and even on the road, I mean, those are just not matchups I want to see. Those are 8 games out of the 28. Tampa's not winning those games. No matter how well it's going to be very. I mean, Chris Archer lost like a billion games last year with Tampa, and he's one of the best pitchers in the game. So if I can stream Snell in those matchups, and maybe even in the right matchup at home, like let's say Snell's up against Eduardo Rodriguez, okay, I'll throw him in again. Eduardo, he's up against Jordan Montgomery. Well, okay, I have a chance there. But Snell against Severino, or Snell against Chris Sale, or even Snell at Camden against anyone, it's very hard for me because Tampa has taken such a step back to go that route. But I like them.
Yeah, I hear you. That unbalanced schedule is killing me. I mean, it's actually got me on a number of Cleveland pitchers right now, only because of the way like that Central Division is shaping
Detroit,
up.
Chicago,
right, like a nightmare, And you could do it in the NL East also, because there are bottom feeders there. You could do it in the NL Central too. There are a lot of teams.
Yeah.
Well, you don't think so?
Milwaukee, I would assume Milwaukee's offense is going to be better. The Cubs' offense is good.
Right.
The Cardinals is good. You think the Cardinals are bad?
I just think that they've taken a step back or two. I definitely think that.
I got Ozuna now, though. I mean, I don't see them worse than last year. I mean, listen, the Cardinals, they have Carpenter. I don't know what he's going to be, and I'm not sure about Tommy Pham. But if you give both of those guys 25 home runs, the Cardinals' offense is going to be pretty good. So you could have questions about it, and that's fair. But I don't see the Central, and by the way, those ballparks also, I don't see it the same way as I do, like you mentioned, the NL East for sure. And that's Central. That's a really good idea. I don't know about Carrasco, but Bauer is another one that this year I really feel like could take that next step, and he's got some great opportunities against Detroit and Chicago, and even the Twins to a degree. No question
about it. All right, well, guys, just so you know here again, Craig Mish, newest member of FantasyAlarm.com. He and I are going to be doing these live streams every Tuesday and every Friday. We're going to be doing them at 12 p.m. Eastern. They're going to go from 12 to 1. You can hop on our YouTube page, Twitter page, Periscope, Facebook. They're all going to be live there, so you can get in all your questions, whether it's DFS, whether it's season long. Craig and I are happy to take care of it. And really just kind of get you through. Also, there's going to be an NFL live stream with me and Brandon Marianne Lee. That's going to be 7 p.m. Eastern every Thursday. We're going to keep that one going. I know a lot of you have been in on that. Craig, we can hear you every Monday through Friday, 9 to 11 a.m. on Sirius XM Fantasy Sports Radio. You, the co-mish and the GM.
The morning Bowden. I got the morning Bowden.
You got the morning Bowden. I got the afternoon Bowden.
Yeah, I'm excited. I'm excited to be here with you. I appreciate, certainly we'll really launch it Friday, but I appreciate the support from Fantasy Alarm. And the other thing, too, that you get from me, on Twitter and a lot of other things that I will, deliver to Fantasy Alarm is, for example, like Dinelson Lamet was a player that I broke the story that he got called up last year. So subscribers to Fantasy Alarm will get that information before it happens, just like Jim has delivers his information. So for fantasy owners to understand, especially a lot of these players in my contacts in the Dominican Republic, when I know a player is getting called up, while other sites are posting their news and they're waiting for me to break the news, Fantasy Alarm will have that, and everybody subscribing to Fantasy Alarm will get the jump on their player, especially in those leagues that are first come, first serve. So I'm very happy to do that. And and all my information that I get will certainly go to Fantasy Alarm. That's for sure.
Love it, absolutely love it. You can follow him on Twitter at Craig Mish. It's as easy as that. So, guys, again, check out our live stream throughout the entire season. We're probably going to carry it straight through to the year. I don't know if we've got a contract for you just for MLB, Craig, but I'm thinking a lifetime guarantee option here.
Football too. Let's do it. Listen, I'm very into football. Just because I don't host year round on football doesn't mean that I don't play fantasy football. I play it a ton. I'm very also big into sports wagering during the football season. Not so much baseball, but with football as well. So a very big proponent of that, and I play DFS football too. I'm very happy to contribute in that way also, and I was the same person last week that broke the story of Frank Gore signing with the Miami Dolphins. So just like you're getting your baseball information from me, you guys will be the first to know when a player is going to another team or somebody that you can target. You will get your leg up on that as well.
This season's going to be sick, people. It's going to be absolutely sick. I cannot tell you just ridiculously how excited I am about it. And if you want a little bit more Mish and a little bit more Bender and a little more Bowden too, well, we've got the host draft coming up on Sirius XM Fantasy Sports Radio. You're going to be able to hear that. That's going to be at 2 p.m. Eastern. And then Jim Bowden and I are going to follow that up with some analysis, and maybe we rope in Craig for a little segment there and kind of bash and smash his team.
Let's do it. Bash me up, man. And then tomorrow night, I'll see you in my home league draft. We've been doing it 20 years. You joined a few years ago. You've been awesome about joining and us taking your money, and we look forward to doing it again. It's going to be great, Howard.
You know what?
We'd love to have you back.
I had the NL only labor draft earlier this year. Now it's your NL only league, Mish. I'm coming for you, man.
You're ready?
The Magic Mishmen are going down. Should we throw a wager right now on that league?
I don't know. There are other people who want to say things, but they don't want to back them up. I'm ready to back mine up. Whatever it is, I'm down with it. But let me say this. In fairness to you, I don't know anyone in this industry who's playing in more leagues than you this year. It's just every league that I see pop up, your name is in there. I mean, do you have like a co-manager of some sort, or like? I mean, I think I'm in like 4 or 5 leagues, and I'm taxed out. Like people ask me, and I don't even do it. I don't know how are you, Howard? How are you doing all these leagues?
I have no idea. I think it's like 12 leagues, 13 leagues. All of a sudden, I just found myself into it. I didn't even know. I think all of a sudden it just happened, and it was so funny too because I was doing the Lisa Ann Does Fantasy draft last night. Okay, and getting bashed by I'm getting bashed by Ronus on the channel left and right, and I'm sitting there, and all of a sudden I was like, oh, yeah, I'm not in the Fantasy Alarm Staff League. I can't do it because the draft was at the same time. I was like,
that's the only reason why you're not in it. You know,
so yeah, it's the only reason.
You're breaking records. You're the only one in SiriusXM Fantasy Sports Radio history to be in both host leagues. No one has ever done that before. You're in both. You're in that one. You're in that Fakakta Dynasty league. Like, I mean, like, is there a league you're not in? Like, I mean, my gosh, like, I give you credit. Like, I don't know, but you know, I mean, we don't have a lot of money tomorrow night in the league, but it's a decent amount. Like, it's fair. I mean, we have a couple hundred involved in it, so you know, hopefully you'll cash out one of these years.
Giddy up, baby. Giddy up. This is my season. Listen, 2017, I took down the Jam on Fantasy Football Championship, and Jim and I won the Fantasy Alarm Radio Show of the Year award.
That's true.
This year, 2018, even better, baby. Tout, labor, SiriusXM, your money, my money, MLB DFS.
And another tattoo for you. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. There you go.
I saw it. Yeah. Yeah, I'm tattoo free here, you know?
Well, you're missing out, buddy. You're missing out. There. Oh, tattoo bet.
No, not doing it. Henna, maybe. Henna.
We'll get you the Mike Tyson henna tattoo that you have to wear for like a month.
You know what? This is kind of melancholy, but let me end with this. You know, Rick Wolf and I had a bet on a tattoo. I had to get a henna of a wolf 2 years ago. I bet Rick that he was bashing, rest in peace, Jose Fernandez. He was saying that he's not going to have a good year or whatever. He's not going to be. And I'm like, I don't know how many games. This guy's going to strike out 200 at least. And he bet under 200. He had it like the All-Star break. He had 200. It was crazy. It was insane. He had a fantastic year. And Rick owned up on that bet, and he put a picture of Jose Fernandez as his image on Fantasy Alarm site for the remainder of the year. So Rick came through on that. I mean, and he donated, by the way, to I don't remember which charity it was, but he donated money to charity. I think to Big League Impact. I think it was at the time too. So nice. Rick put his money where his mouth was, no doubt about that.
Love it. Love it. All right, guys, that's going to do it for us today. Join Craig and I again Friday, 12 p.m. Eastern. We got a lot to talk about. Why? Opening day, baby. It's Thursday. Cannot wait. We'll see you next time. Thanks for joining us here on the Fantasy Alarm MLB live stream.